And welcome to a special live edition of Free Minds TV, where we challenge you, the viewer, to think outside the box. With you, as always, is Toby.
And Nick.
And we are broadcasting live in Lancaster, New Hampshire from PorcFest 2009, where we're going to be talking a whole lot about the Free State Project, the whole freedom movement in general, interviewing people who are making the move to New Hampshire to fight for freedom and less government.
Yeah, and, well, a lot of them are congregating here in Lancaster, New Hampshire, because this is PorcFest is the annual gathering of the Free State Project, one of the annual gatherings. They do have Liberty Forum in the winters, but this is the more relaxed camping trip, and I think it's a little bit better opportunity to socialize. And we do have Carla, what was your last name?
Garrick.
Carla Garrick here, who is the organizer of PorcFest 2009.
I am indeed. I think it's a slightly dubious honor, but yes, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited.
Well, thank you, because there is a lot of work that goes into organizing an event of this size. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the groundwork that went into this?
Sure. It's do I talk to here?
We're talking to him.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's a lot of work, but obviously I'm not Superwoman. There was a ton of volunteers that helped. Everything from calling people, organizing vendors, making food. We have people cooking for a pork roast right now that'll start in a little while. We have a huge launch party starting. We have 200 bottles of wine that we need to open. So if anyone is interested in coming to open some wine, let me know.
Yeah, and it's important to point out that for our viewers who might be watching this on a cable broadcast station or anything else, we are currently broadcasting right now live on the internet. So anything we're saying, it might be relating to things that are happening right here and now, because there might be people watching who are going to be attending PorcFest up here in Lancaster, New Hampshire, might be about to leave their house and come on up here. So we are giving them some updates on what's actually going on right here and now.
Now, real quick, I wanted to just bring things back for a moment. As Nick said, we are broadcasting on the internet as well as to tons of cable stations around the country, and a lot of people don't know what the Free State Project is at all. Yeah, I mean, there's just a bunch of weird people moving to New Hampshire or something. People who haven't heard of it, what would you tell someone the Free State Project is, and then why PorcFest? What's this annual gathering about?
Well, you know, the Free State Project to some extent is what you personally make of it. The goals, obviously, is to shrink government, to just have government involved in our lives with terms, you know, the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, and a smaller government. And for me personally, I mean, I moved here after living in New York City for a long time, and I just had a moment where I came around the corner and I saw the police. I'm originally from South Africa, and sort of had that police state moment where I was like, this is like South Africa circa 1980s, you know, the full regalia cops, and I was like, I want out. I joined the Free State Project in 2005, came to PorcFest here in 2006, met all these great, amazing people, and just decided to move out. So the Free State Project, I mean, the goal is to get 20,000 people to move here. We have record attendance this year, so we're probably going to have over 500 people, and we really hope a lot of the people who are from out of the state make the same decision I made to move once you're here. So you're supposed to have fun, and then you're supposed to move. The short version.
Well, I know PorcFest has led a lot of people to move to New Hampshire. I've met a lot of people here who, and in some cases, they attended PorcFest not expecting to stay in New Hampshire, and then they ended up staying here, making the move that same week. So for a lot of people, it's a really powerful experience to meet this many other individuals who share their views on liberty, the size of government, and it's a kind of unique experience. I don't really know of any other gatherings that take place like this around the country that are quite this big in terms of just sheer attendance.
Right.
I mean, arguably maybe the Libertarian Party's convention, but that's political stuff. It's boring.
Exactly, and it's boring, and also, you know, here it's sort of the big tent. I mean, you know, they're little L's, they're big L's. We've got the anarcho-capitalists. We've got really a little bit of something for everyone. It's not, you know, it's not so political. I think it's almost more a way of life.
And what makes it unique is that people who are coming to PorcFest have an eye, either they've moved to New Hampshire, they're New Hampshire natives, or they have an eye towards maybe moving here in the future. So there's more of a community atmosphere here than you would get at any other, say, national convention where people are just going to meet for the weekend and then go their separate ways.
Right, and we worked really hard with the programming to try and do that and to try and appeal to you know, different segments and have different things. This is partly a family event, partly a party event, you know, so you're trying to keep everyone happy. But we have we have the kids programs, we have political things, we have training for activists specifically where they can come and they can learn more different techniques of activism. What should you do when a cop pulls you over? I wouldn't recommend doing what I generally do, so I needed to take Mike Barsky's class. So there's a little bit of something for everyone, and yeah, I think it's great when people come, they stay, and they don't leave. That is a successful PorcFest.
All right. Well, I know that you are organizing this whole thing, so you probably have a ton of stuff that you have to do.
A little bit.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, people are coming here from all over the country, all over the world, and it's not only the people who are moving here, Nick, that I think is exciting, because people are getting natives like you and myself. We're not Free State Project members. We live in New Hampshire, but the Free State Project members moving here got us excited, got us to do this TV show, start Free Minds Media, and do a radio show, and all sorts of activism is coming to us when we live here. It's a great benefit of living here, but it's not just the 20,000 people that are going to be moving to New Hampshire.
And I mean, ultimately, the Free State Project is going to have to appeal to more people who are currently in New Hampshire. Some of the criticisms that have been made that it's an attempt to take over, they really don't hold a lot of water, because there's 20,000 people in the state of over 1 million. The numbers aren't there. So it's really a movement to get activists here who can then convince people, educate people, maybe get involved in politics, and actually change the scene here on the ground, in New Hampshire. But that's going to require cooperation from natives. So right now, a lot of the emphasis is on moving, but moving into the future, and currently too, there is a lot of emphasis on activism, whether it's on the political side or protesting or on civil disobedience, trying to change the scene here in New Hampshire.
Right, and it is actually working already, even though the goal is to get 20,000 people to sign up for the Free State Project and then make the move. Stuff's going on already. People have decided, well, I'm not going to wait for 20,000 number to reach. It'll probably take a number of years. They're almost at the 10,000 mark right now, so almost halfway there, but it's taken quite a few years to get that high. So
I mean, the membership really took off for right at the beginning, like 5,000 members signed up within, I think, a year, and things have leveled off since then, but lately there have been a lot more new movers coming, so I think there's an emphasis now on getting people here to New Hampshire to show what can be done with a handful of activists. Really just a few hundred activists moving into the state from outside can accomplish some really impressive things. So imagine what can happen with 20,000, and I think that's a recruitment strategy that they're going with now.
Right, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be political stuff. It doesn't have to be outside the system stuff. The whole goal is not to come here and then get plugged into this organization that's already set up and you have to do this, this, and this. It's to move to New Hampshire and do whatever activism you think's right, whatever activism you're into. And yes, there are systems that are already in place for people to move here and then they can get right into it and hook up. Well, I like political stuff, so that maybe sign up with the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance and get into the political activism. Or if you want to do outside the system civil disobedience, there's certainly a whole lot of that going on as well. But we do want to talk to more people here. There are hundreds of people, hundreds of liberty activists here in New Hampshire who are attending for the weekend. So let's move right along and do that. Would you like to just quickly introduce yourself for everybody here, let them know your name, where you're from, and then, well, how'd you get here?
Sure, gentlemen. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Mark Warden, and I'm one of the co-organizers of Porcupine Freedom Festival. We call it PorcFest, but of course it's Porcupine Freedom Festival. This is our 6th annual, back up here in beautiful Lancaster, New Hampshire. And I am a mover with the Free State Project. Carla touched on it a bit, but as you just discussed, it's a sort of a geopolitical movement that's going to make history with getting a number of libertarian and liberty-minded folks to move to New Hampshire, the chosen state, and affect more individual freedom, personal liberties, civil liberties, smaller government, as you touched on, and really kind of improve the quality of life for people in New Hampshire. I would like to bring up the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance.
Please, yes, absolutely.
We affectionately know it as the NHLA, but the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance is one of the foremost pro-liberty, all-volunteer organizations in the country, and is one of the most effective at actually working as citizen lobbyists to educate and inform legislators. So we're an all-volunteer, all the time, all-liberty organization. I'm on the board of directors currently, and we do a lot of work at the State House in Concord. We do we review every bill that comes before the legislature. It's 1,000 bills a year. We have a group of 50 volunteers, one of the biggest in the country for this type of effort. And
this is just on the state level too, just the New Hampshire state level.
Yeah, we don't pay attention to federal legislation. It's too much. It's hard enough to keep up at the state level.
Well, and the fact is that New Hampshire does have a citizen legislature. It has, I think, the third largest English-speaking lawmaking body in the world after the U.S. Congress and Parliament, and it offers an opportunity because people in the New Hampshire legislature aren't career politicians. They're, for the most part, typical folks, and it's easier to get in touch with them. I mean, in New Hampshire, you actually can call your state representative on their home phone. I mean, many times these people are even listed in the phone book, so it's very easy to reach out and interact with state government, whereas in many states that simply wouldn't be possible. I mean, I imagine back in Nevada, you wouldn't be able to just call up a state rep at his home and talk to him about legislation.
Yeah, it's much more accessible here, and that's why we can be so effective with our grassroots efforts. People working as volunteers can really make a difference here. And it's hard to pass pro-liberty laws because so few are introduced, but we're hoping to stop a lot of bad legislation. But the vast majority is bad, anti-liberty.
Well, on some positive news, I did hear this morning that the medical marijuana bill in New Hampshire has passed the House and the Senate and it's been amended, so hopefully the governor won't veto it. So,
and you guys also warded off those seatbelt nanny-staters for one more year as well. Still New Hampshire, the only state, I believe, in the nation that you don't have to buckle up if you're an adult. So there's definitely been some huge victories that if people weren't already in New Hampshire in the getting involved here and getting involved in politics, well, we'd have a lot more government already. So I'm really excited this is only a few hundred people, what it's going to be like when there's actually thousands here on the ground.
We are making a difference now with just a few hundred people, as you're saying. Yeah, double or triple that within the next couple of years. Watch out. All
right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So as you can see, there's people coming here, moving to New Hampshire, uprooting their entire lives for liberty and freedom. I mean, this is something we did grow up here, so we didn't have to do it. We're already blessed with them. They're coming to us.
Right.
But can you imagine uprooting your entire life to move for some kind of a political cause?
Well, I mean, even people who haven't moved yet, people are coming here from all over. I think there's somebody from Scotland here. So people, I mean, not just this PorcFest, but others, people are coming from all over the world, not just all over the United States. And I mean, it seemed like a long drive coming here because I think we went about 150 miles to get here from Keene.
But that's the whole state.
but that's it. 150 miles isn't much compared to a lot of the people who've made the trip just to come here and check it out, see what the Free State Project is all about, and just hang out with some other people of like mind.
Yeah, and a lot of times when, as you already stated, is people will come up here, like PorcFest so much, that they'll actually decide to stay and move. And one of these people we talked to, the first time Free Minds TV did a broadcast from PorcFest, this was 3 years ago, we came up here and did a shoot similar to this one. It was before you were on the show, Nick. One of the people we talked to was, is it Rich Angel?
You got it.
We talked to you, who had just moved here with absolutely nothing.
That's right.
And we wanted to check in, and first, could you just recap the story of how you got here, and then update us on what it's like for someone who comes to New Hampshire with nothing, and how are you accepted? How have things been going for you over the last 3 years?
Right, so June of 2007, I showed up with a Bronco, everything I owned in a 5 by 8 foot cargo trailer. I had a couple of $100 in cash and no place to live, no job lined up, and a prayer. And I announced to everybody at PorcFest that I've made the move and I have no idea what I'm going to do or where I'm going to live. And it wasn't too long before somebody came to me and said, hey, we got a deal for you. And next thing you know, I'm invited to Grafton, which is home of the Free Town Project, so-called or otherwise. It's a small town out in the country, and I was actually given the opportunity to house it, and I was actually paid for that for a while. And the bottom line is I lived for rent-free, and I did odd jobs and things like that. And then I began a farming odyssey. I'm a member, I've been a long-time member of Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. The acronym is WOOF. The verb is to woof.
I'm familiar with that because I know some people from my high school class actually joined that program getting out of high school.
Great program. That and organicvolunteers.com. The bottom line is that there are farms all over the world that'll take people, you put in some work, a few hours a day, you get a place to stay, you get food to eat, usually food grown right there on the farm, and you get the experience. And so beginning the day after Easter, after I made the move, I began this farming odyssey. I worked on 3 different farms. That took me all the way to October.
That's what you're doing for work, and the fun thing, do you get involved in some of the political stuff?
Oh, you bet, yeah. I helped with the vote recount. That, when there was that controversy about the vote, was it really kosher?
It was that
back during the primary race.
Exactly, the primary race. I was heavily involved in that, and of course the Ron Paul campaign, and doing various protests and letter writing and this, that, and the other thing, all on the side. But anyway, it all works together with what I'm doing. And right now I'm part of a community that's working to not only establish liberty in a small community, but we're also working to make ourselves less and less dependent on the system. So self-sufficiency, all the kinds of things that I've stood for a long time, putting it into practice, combining it with the Liberty Act ideas.
It does make sense, I mean, if you're going to move to a community, to actually apply those principles there, because if you're somebody who's interested in organic farming or self-sufficiency, it's a lot better if you can apply it in the space where you're actually living, maybe be of some benefit to the people around you too, as opposed to having to go do it somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with, say, woofing or doing any of that other stuff, but I think it's a lot better a lot of the time if you can do it close to home.
That is correct. Yeah.
All right. So if someone else is on the fence here about is New Hampshire the place, are you happy with your decision to come up here and stay?
Absolutely. And as a reminder, I came from Montana, but I like to tell people Montana is not a bad place. It's got some, there's a lot of space, so one difference is that getting people together for
it's more spread out.
It's more spread out, and a lot of times I felt like a lone voice crying out in the wilderness, so to speak. But I lost my train of thought.
Well, what the difference between Montana and New Hampshire?
I like to tell people it's not so much that I moved from Montana, but that I moved to New Hampshire.
Excellent.
For the Free State Project.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and
I'm glad to be here.
We'll have to get an update next year when you come. So thanks so much for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
You bet.
I mean, Nick, there's so many different types of stories, so many different things that you can do when you come to New Hampshire here. I mean, you don't need to devote your entire life to political causes. You don't need that.
Political or apolitical, whatever your activism is, it doesn't have to be 100%. I mean, it does say in the statement of intent when you sign up to move to New Hampshire that you'll exert the fullest practical energy towards achieving a government where the maximum goal is the protection of life, liberty, and property. So the maximum possible effort. Now, does that mean you have to be out there 24 hours a day? Not necessarily. I mean, to a lot of people.
Well, that'll burn a lot of people out. I mean, if you're devoting 100% of your life to activism, well, that's a lot.
And there's a balance that does need to be struck. I mean, some people are perfectly content to do activism pretty much 24/7.
Which is great. I mean, if you want to do that, that's awesome.
If that's what you enjoy doing.
But that's not what you need to do if you want to move here. I mean, a lot of it's just coming here, being around like-minded people who believe that government shouldn't be there to be your daddy or to be your mommy or to be God. I mean, the governments are force, and getting the smallest government possible will benefit everybody's lives. But we do have to move on. We've got other people to talk to, share their stories, and we've actually got one of our sponsors here with us from StasherSwag.com.
Taryn Lupo of StasherSwag.com, and you are not yet in New Hampshire, is that correct?
Correct. I have been signed up for the Free State Project since 2003, I believe. I had the original vote.
Right, I think that was 2003.
Yeah, I think so. And just stuff kept getting in the way. Life got in the way, and I kept thinking, I'm going to get there this year, I'm going to get there this year. And so I just have some family issues, but as soon as that's taken care of, I'm on my way.
Well, and it's important to point out that you, like a lot of people, are interested in moving as early as you can, even though technically all the signing up for the Free State Project obligates you to do is move after they've reached 20,000 signers. There are a great many people out there who really want to move before that, as soon as they can square away whatever they have going on, whether it's family stuff or some people have to sell a house, which is a difficult thing to do if you've got a mortgage right now for a lot of people. So there are a lot of people in that same boat. They want to move, but they're kind of in a holding pattern until they can get here.
That's it. When the economy collapsed, you got stuck with a lot of real estate you couldn't get rid of, and you know, it's put a damper on stuff. But I'd like to be number 1,000 if I can get it, or 999. I haven't figured it out, but I want to get here that first 1,000.
You definitely have been helping out. I mean, you don't only sponsor our show, but you've also sponsored Free Talk Live, the Ridley Report, a number of media that's already in place here in New Hampshire, and helping us out with Stash Your Swag, which is actually an ingenious little idea. Do you want to just let people know what's going on with it?
I'll be happy to tell you what it's about. Basically, which can't ring. Basically, it is a ebook I wrote about how to hide stuff around your house, and it's all for, most ideas are free, but mostly nothing's over $50. Book's only $6.95. It's under $7. But what happened was, when my grandfather was back in Oklahoma, and we're talking during the Depression days, right around 1930, they recalled silver and gold out of the society. And my book opens up and talks about that, about why, basically how they ended up pulling gold and silver out of the society. And what they did is they used banks as their muscle. They made it illegal to own it, and then whenever you went to your safety deposit box, there was either someone from the state, like an agent, or or actually people from the bank themselves that watched you open it. And if you had gold and silver, they made you change out for Federal Reserve notes right there, and they took your money. The problem was they only gave you, they really only gave you the value that was on the coins, the face value.
Which is, I think it would still work the same way today, because when you get those, say, commemorative coins from the U.S. Mint that say $1 on them, even though the silver is worth $15 or $20, depending on where silver is on a particular day, the face value doesn't reflect the actual value of the coin at all.
I mean, I have some $50 gold coins that are worth almost $1,000, but they say $50 on them.
That's what they did, is they actually, I mean, yeah, it was probably better back then. It was a little closer to what the actual value was, but he had some rare coins. And ever since that, you know, they didn't have the internet back then, so it was one of those deals where you just found out when you showed up to the bank. You didn't know. And so they lost all these rare coins for just cash value, and he was so mad about it, he never kept money in the bank after that again, except for just like regular little, you know, to pay the bills.
Account, right.
Just to make it convenient, but all this real money he kept somewhere else in the house. And I always thought that was so odd that when I was a little kid, he would just come out of the basement with a bunch of cash.
Right, but one of the downsides to doing that is, if you're going to keep, whether it's cash or precious metals in your home, is the fact that it might be a little bit safer from government, because they're likely to use banks again. But you also have to worry about anybody stealing it at that point, because you're basically concentrating your physical wealth all in one spot.
Right, and I know that this happened to me one time. I had all my valuables in a safe, and someone just walked away with it and smashed it. Well, they didn't get the whole safe away. They smashed it out front and took everything that was in it, because they knew where all my goodies were in the one place where I said, basically, come and just walk away with this.
The book addresses that, and what I suggest is you treat it kind of like a mutual fund, where you make at least 10 different little stashes, and you break it up all over the place. So that way, if you do get hit, then you're good to go. There's a chance a burglar might find 1 or 2 stashes, but they're not going to find all 10. Yeah. Especially, if you do it well.
Yeah, there are some great ideas.
Certainly,
in
and
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, and people can check that out at StashYourSwag.com. You do sponsor the show, and we try to promote businesses, websites, anyone who promotes Free Minds TV, Free Minds Radio, any of our operations. We try to give them a plug, because you help us out, we'd like to help you out.
I love the show. So.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Can't wait to have you actually living here in New Hampshire.
I can't wait to hang out with y'all. Good luck with your wedding.
It'll be great. Thank you. I am getting married this weekend, and we have a whole lot more that we are going to be getting to, interviewing more people who are in New Hampshire, have made the move, and are coming here to fight for more freedom and less government. We will be right back. Stay tuned. This is Free Minds TV.
I'm Sam with OTN, and you're watching Free Minds TV, one of the few media sources that asks you to think for yourself.
Free Minds TV is brought to you in part by Life Productions for your basic and semi-pro video production needs. From full wedding and event coverage to DVD authoring and distributions, lifeproductions.com. That's lyfproductions.com. And welcome back to Free Minds TV. It is Toby here with you.
And Nick.
And we are live at PorcFest 2009 here in Lancaster, New Hampshire. The sun is definitely shining. We're probably going to be sunburnt by the end of this, but we're having a great time here at PorcFest. What is it, the 6th annual PorcFest, where people are coming to New Hampshire to check out what's going on here. And Free State Project is a way to get people to move to New Hampshire to fight for more freedom and less government.
Right.
And so we have been here, we're talking to people, seeing what made people uproot their entire lives in order to fight for more liberty and more freedom.
And it's important to point out that some people have moved a few years, within the span of a few years. So people are here maybe 4 or 5 years in at this point. So it's not as if everybody here is a new mover or a prospective mover. Some people have been here for a while, but one person who is a relatively new mover is Cooper Travis. Cooper, you're a resident of the Keene area, where we're broadcasting out of. That's our home base. And you're up here at PorcFest 2009 because obviously you moved to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project. How are you liking it?
I love it. It's quite a change from Colorado, where I moved from.
And you were a little bit outside of Denver? Or?
Yeah, a little east of Denver on the plains.
Yeah, so obviously you're probably not going to meet as many people of like mind in that area, I would think.
Definitely not.
And,
especially at my high school.
Yeah.
So what caused you to uproot your whole life and move to New Hampshire? Was it any one event that happened, or is it just the culmination of lots of things and you decided, hey, I'm making the move?
Well, it was kind of a culmination. I was getting towards the end of my senior year in high school, and my dad and I were listening to a lot of Free Talk Live and getting turned on to the ideas of freedom and liberty. And we, at the end, we just decided, hey, let's do it. All my friends are going to be leaving anyway. So I might as well move. So we packed up the truck and all the horses and we moved out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point in your life to make a major switch like that. How are you liking life in New Hampshire and the activism going on here, not just PorcFest?
It's very different, but change is always good. Change is always welcome. The activism is great. After I moved here, a couple months after I moved here, some activism kind of got thrown in my lap. I was arrested on my front porch for videotaping a police officer after some sort of altercation.
Yeah, I mean, police officers don't like to be videotaped, and public officials in general don't. In our experience, I mean, we've been reporting here on Free Minds TV about Sam Dodson being arrested for trying to film just in the lobby of the Keene District Court, and he wasn't the first. I mean, I think he was trying to film in the lobby while Dave Ridley was being arraigned for the same thing or on trial for the same thing. So very clearly, public officials anywhere you go are not happy being on camera.
Right.
All right. Well, if people are on the fence about making the move, what do you suggest at this point? As your experience, I mean, you have had some run-ins with the police. Has it been good overall? If there's people coming to help you out and help with your defense?
The only time I've ever seen any real police hardships have been when we've been in the middle of some serious activism. Other than that, they've been pretty neutral. I haven't had any problems with them.
Yeah, obviously activism is something they're reacting to. So if you're just going about your daily life, you're not really likely to have some of the same run-ins because you're not setting off that trigger like putting them on camera.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any final words before you move on and enjoy the festivities?
No, just if you're a young person looking to learn more about freedom and liberty, move to Keene.
Excellent. Well, there's all sorts of activism going on all over the place. Keene, where we're broadcasting from, is one of
Keene's a popular destination, especially for a lot of the younger crowd.
Yeah, there's a lot of people getting involved, not only doing apolitical stuff, but that's what a lot of people are doing, is civil disobedient type stuff that's going on in Keene. But there's also political movements as well in ton. And thank you so much for coming on, and enjoy the rest of PorcFest. All right, so, I mean, one thing I wanted to touch on real quick here before we talk to our next guest is what it's like when you first get to the state. And, I mean, something that I've been told, I've actually grew up in New Hampshire. I haven't had to move around
Well,
much. I mean, moved to apartments, but I mean, when moving is a big deal, especially when you're moving from other countries or other states across the United States. And something that they have here in New Hampshire that's probably not set up in most places where if you're just making a move is there are people ready to help you on the ground the moment you cross the border, essentially.
Yeah, and that's certainly true. I mean, I know we had Rich Angel on talking about how he came here without a job or a vehicle. Really, I mean, he had a vehicle, but really nothing besides the possessions he could cram into a truck and a trailer, and that was it. He had no real support network, but you do find a support network if you're a pro-liberty activist when you land here on the ground, because there are other movers who are willing to help you out.
I mean, everything from just unpacking your car, unpacking your trailer, and moving you right into your house and setting things up right away. Yeah, there's always people greeting you, helping out, and hooking up with different social networks. So it's a great time.
All right, and we have another guest here, and not everybody who's involved in this movement is a mover. They haven't all come from out of state like you and I, Toby. And your name is Jason.
It's Josh. But
Josh, oh God, it was a J name. I'm sorry. And you are a New Hampshire native. But
I've been here for about 24 years. I probably would have moved to a chosen state after I learned about this to begin with, but it happened I only had to move across the state.
Yeah, and you're currently in the Keene area. Where was it that you moved from?
I was living in the Northwood area, which is kind of close to the seacoast, and I was looking to go back to school after taking a year off. I figured Keene had the type of program I was looking for, the type of activism I was interested in, and I'm glad some of my best friends I've had in my life I've met in the past year since I've been there.
And so what exactly have you been involved with in terms of activism?
Support of civil disobedience to a large degree, as best I can. Certain things I'm not ready to put on the line yet.
Well, yeah, obviously, I mean, going to jail can put a damper on an education or a job or any other commitments you have outside.
Not really into the martyrdom thing, but definitely into standing up for myself when and if the state decides to press me.
Right, and I mean, some people do kind of try to walk a line where they'll push as hard as they can without landing themselves in a jail cell. So, I mean, it's not always an absolute with civil disobedience. Sometimes you just see how far you can push things and leave it at that.
Absolutely. It's not so much about gaining ground by pushing, but as much as standing your own ground and not letting yourself be uprooted.
Yeah, that is a good way to look at it.
All right, so I think this is a loaded question. I know the answer to, but a lot of criticism that some New Hampshire natives, the more statist types, say, well, all these people are coming into New Hampshire and changing its values, changing its ways.
Those people from Massachusetts, I agree.
Well, how do you feel about all these free staters moving in to help fight the oppressive government?
I think it's great. Because frankly, I'm of the type of person that grew up here, and if you always have imprinted in your mind this live free or die mentality, then I think it kind of shapes your approach to a degree. You grow up learning, teaching you about the Constitution, that sort of thing in school, and I think generally people take it a little more seriously up here. I know I did. I don't think live free or die for me died when the old man fell down. It's just a pile of rocks, and I think we need a more powerful symbol than that, and Free State Project does it for me. So.
All right. Any last thoughts? What would you tell someone who's on the fence? Should I move to New Hampshire? What's the environment like here? What would you tell them?
Well, I would say come and check it out. That's what PorcFest is for, Liberty Forum. If you want to get more into the activism idea, but if you just want to really get to know some people, have some fun in the sun, this is my second PorcFest, and I'm glad it came up.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. Appreciate it. What's interesting is PorcFest. I mean, while we are New Hampshire natives, that's where you and I met, Nick, was at PorcFest. I think it was 3 years ago. Was it 3 years ago? Yeah, it must have been. I
think so.
It was actually here in Lancaster.
It was right here at Rogers Campground, so this place has a history for both of us and for Free Minds TV and everything that's sprung up around that.
Well, when we first met, it was before Free Minds TV, before anything got started. Actually, I came up here growing up. I always knew something was wrong with the system, but I never really checked out the Libertarian Party. I didn't know what it was. I was taught in government schools, and you're either a Democrat or you're a Republican, so I was like, well, I don't like the Republicans a whole lot, so I guess I'm a Democrat. So it wasn't until later in life I started listening to Free Talk Live. They were talking about the PorcFest, came up here, met you, and then look, we're doing all this activism ourselves.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Libertarian Party, even a few years ago, was the primary way I think that a lot of people found liberty, but now it's been eclipsed to a large degree by this new model of activism through the internet, and a lot of those sources of information, the sources, the contact points that people originally have with the pro-liberty movement are in many cases activists here in New Hampshire. I mean, Free Talk Live is broadcast out of Keene, New Hampshire now, and that reaches maybe more people than the Libertarian Party ever did on a weekly basis. So.
Absolutely. They're growing on more stations all the time, and there's always more media moving in.
And our show's growing too. So.
Well, speaking of more people moving in, we've got another guest to talk to. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about where you're from and such.
Sure. I'm Andrew. I've been living in New Hampshire for about 10 months now. I moved here last year from California. And actually, PorcFest is the first time I was ever out here.
Last year's PorcFest?
Oh, 2007.
2007. So. All right, so what caused you to make a huge move like this? I mean, this isn't something that most people can just do, is uproot their whole lives and move across the country for something political or apolitical. What was the breaking point with you?
I mean, for me, I always pretty much planned on moving here. I just wasn't sure exactly when it was going to be. And then last year, after I graduated college, the economy started to suck. I couldn't really find any decent jobs in California, so I said, I've only got so much savings left. If I'm going to do it, I got to do it now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a position I think quite a few people might be in. The downturn in the economy is not a great thing, but the fact of the matter is it has pushed some people to either make a move or make some other kind of change in their life, because, I mean, once you get tied down to a career in some other area, it is a lot harder to make the move.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially, I mean, the job market here is down too, but it's much better than it is in most of the rest of the country.
Yeah, especially, I mean, California really got hit hard.
I got nailed. I mean, people are still hiring here, not great jobs, but there's at least something out there.
You still find something.
So even temporarily.
Since you moved up here, what has your impression been like? What kind of, have you gotten involved in any activism yet, or are you political, apolitical? How are things treating you?
Sure. I've been doing a little bit of both, some political rallies and stuff, and then some sort of alternative markets I've been working in, stuff like that. So, I mean, that's pretty much what I've been doing. I've been working full time, donating money to other organizations.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that's important. I mean, we rely on donations quite a bit here on Free Minds TV, so people who can't necessarily get directly involved, be a full-time activist, they can at least support the activities that are going on here in New Hampshire by donating money or just moral support even. Money helps a little bit more, but, emails and feedback does help. I know it helps Toby and I stay with this and stay committed to the show just as much as donations. So any way you can help, it does benefit the freedom movement, whether it's directly being an activist or whether you can just support the activities of others.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You know, I think that's so important, that there's so many different ways that you can get involved, even if you're just a behind-the-scenes person. I mean, you and I are on the front of the camera here, Nick, but it took way more than two people to put this together. And we're not just talking about PorcFest here, but Free Minds TV. I mean, there's so many people behind the camera, way back there in a building doing the switcher thing, Lauren's doing the directing of it. It takes so many people behind the scenes to get stuff like this going as well.
Absolutely. I mean, just setting up the set today took a couple of hours, really. And we couldn't do that by ourselves. If it was just us, number one, no one could run the cameras or do the switching, and number two, it would take us all day just to set up the set. So having a good crew of activists behind you, it really does help, whether you're right out there front and center in the public eye or whether you're doing something behind the scenes. It does all matter. And ultimately, the objective here is to reduce the size of government, or in some people's book, eliminate government altogether and get more individual freedom and liberty. So we're all out for basically the same thing, and anything you can do to advance that goal is a positive thing in my book.
Absolutely. And we have another guest with us over there. How's it going?
Going all right. I just got here a few hours ago, and we're having a lot of fun already.
And what's your name?
I'm Ryan Marvin. I've lived here for almost 2 years now. Moved here from Texas.
From Texas. What caused you to move from Texas to New Hampshire? And how do you hear about the Free State Project? I'm always interested in that as well.
Actually, I heard about the Free State Project shortly after the vote was taken for New Hampshire. In an article in the Mensa Bulletin, actually.
So is it one of those obscure findings?
Yeah, actually it was written by a member of the New Hampshire chapter of Mensa who's also a Free Stater, and it seemed really interesting to me. I've looked into it and joined up, and about 2 years ago, I planned on moving later than that, but about 2 years ago everything lined up and it was a good time for me to move, so I just went ahead and made the move early.
And how are you enjoying it now that you have made the move to New Hampshire?
Oh, it's amazing. It's beautiful out here. I don't have to pay as much in taxes. I stay real politically active, and it takes up a lot of my time, but I get to do what I love every day.
So, since you've been up here, what's your favorite kind of activism? What do you like getting involved with most?
Well, I've mostly been politically active. Last year it was mostly on gun issues. This year the same-sex marriage issue was the biggest deal. I spent God knows how many hours, and I calculated it out, and about 1,000 man-hours just from Free Staters went into that.
Wow.
And
it passed.
Despite the fact we were outspent 10-1, but we had all the boots on the ground and we won. It was signed into law 3 weeks ago, and it takes effect at the beginning of the year.
Right. Before we move on and you go enjoy the rest of the festivities, could you tell us about your T-shirt and what the Pink Pistols are?
Oh, yeah. I was actually just wearing this because it happened to be clean. Pink Pistols is an organization mainly for educating gays and lesbians on self-defense issues, both their rights, on licensing, things like that, and providing a social atmosphere for them to practice shooting and be with people of like mind and everything. We feel that a strong self-defense beats the hell out of any crap hate crime law that's completely ineffective any day.
All right, well, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the festivities. I mean, there are so many people doing so many different things. I was on, I forget which website it is, one of the freedom-oriented websites, and it was listing all the different organizations in New Hampshire that have been started up as a result of the Free State Project. Not necessarily by members, but ones like Free Minds Media, our website, is on there as well. And there are getting to be over 100 of them at this point. And this is without the move happening yet.
Yeah, and I mean, it's absolutely amazing, and it's not just any one area of policy. I mean, there are certain existing organizations. I believe Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers has been around for a long time, but I know they've been bolstered. There's all kinds of single issue areas where people have gotten involved, whether Free Staters or people have been spurred on by the fact that Free Staters are moving here. For instance, Coalition for New Hampshire Common Sense Marijuana Policy, we do cover their activities quite a bit. They would not be here without the Free State Project. I know that much.
There's a very good chance. I mean, they've been doing a whole lot of stuff on the political level. There's a very good chance the medical marijuana bill that has just passed hasn't been signed by the governor yet, but it wouldn't have happened without Matt Simon and all the activists who have been on the ground and helping create what's going on there.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of firsts that are taking place because of Free State Project movers. I believe, I think it was only last year, the year before, it was the first time a marijuana bill or a medical marijuana bill had ever passed the New Hampshire House, and that I don't believe that would be happening today.
And now it passed by a 2/3 majority through the House, at least, I believe. So lots of big things happening.
Yeah, and positive things, in my opinion.
Absolutely. But we do have more people to talk to. Someone who we're familiar with, who's helping out on the set and helping out behind the scenes. Patrick.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going well.
So you're not from around these parts, are you? What brought you here?
I moved about 4 months ago as part of the Free State Project, and the thing that appealed to me most was seeing the letters to the bureaucrats that Ian Freeman was sending in Keene. So I chose Keene, and it turned out to exceed my expectations, and I found a group of basically just immediate friends.
So it's been a positive move for you. What made you move before the actual vote before the 20,000 numbers reached? Because that's not going to happen for quite a few years. You're an early mover, obviously. What caused you to move early?
I graduated high school and I worked on my own doing freelance stuff for a few months, and I just decided, instead of building up a life for a few years and then having to get rid of it all, why not just start building up a life where I plan on spending the rest of my life?
There you go. Now, I know I see you at almost every political or apolitical event. You're just always around on the ground when there's activism going on. What's your favorite type? What do you really like to do? Or is it just, if there's freedom activism going on, I like to be involved?
My favorite would be civil disobedience. I like seeing the bureaucrats
poke the beast with a stick.
Huh?
Poking the government with a stick.
Sort of. It's more like acting like a free person and seeing what they do. And when they're put on the spot, they seem to act in sort of funny ways, at least in hindsight. Of course, they put people in jail. That's not as funny.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of that going on in Keene, New Hampshire especially. Yeah. I think that would be the capital for where there's civil disobedience happening. I mean, Ian Freeman from Free Talk Live moving here, and that video of the Judge Burke, the local judge who's sentencing most of these people, just flipping out on people, has caused a whole lot of more people to move to Keene, and then it's almost having this snowball effect right now where all the civil disobedience that's happening is just spurring more civil disobedience, which is spurring more and more. And I mean, when's the critical mass? How do you think this is going to work out in the end?
I don't know when the critical mass will exist, but it feels like we're building more and more momentum every day, and there's more and more movers every week. There's usually a new mover. Like in my house that I live in, there's 13 libertarians, and that's
in one house.
Yes,
it's like a little fraternity you've got going on there.
It's awesome.
All right, well, what would you say to people who have not moved yet, who are thinking about it? What would be the number one reason that they should just get off their butts and make the move now instead of waiting years down the line?
I would note something I've noticed about people in Keene is that for you to move to Keene, you have to have certain prerequisites, like you have to enjoy action. You have to actually act on your beliefs. And so if you move to Keene, you'll find a bunch of other people who are active and usually very intelligent and pursuing their own goals. And that's something you won't find anywhere else. You know, well, you may find it some places, but
not in the numbers that it's here.
No,
at least.
No. Everyone else who's moved to Keene has moved to Keene because they act.
And there's a high amount of energy, and I'm sure it's only growing at this point. I mean, I don't see it stopping anytime soon, no matter how many people are thrown behind bars for it. Well, Patrick, thanks so much for not only helping out, but coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. You know, Nick, there's got to be a critical mass at some point when the bureaucrats on both sides, on the political spectrum and in civil disobedience crowd, of what point are the bureaucrats going to have to start doing things a little bit differently? So far, what they've been doing is throwing people behind bars at the taxpayer's expense and, well, making people sit in cages if they're not standing up quick enough for the judge, or if they're holding a plant matter in their hand, such as marijuana, even though they're not smoking it or hurting anyone with it, showing these victimless crimes. There's no victim. Well, why are you putting people in jail for it?
I think there is a critical mass, but I think a lot of it is going to deal with when people outside of the direct activist community are standing up and demanding an actual change in how the bureaucrats are behaving. So, you know, obviously the bureaucrats, they're not too concerned, even if we had, say, 300 activists in Keene, New Hampshire. I don't know you're going to be able to move the bureaucrats entirely through activism. You're going to have to get, I think, a lot of the general public to at least start agreeing with you, or at the very least start disagreeing with how the judges or the police or any of the bureaucrats are conducting themselves. So they might not have to agree with the activist community 100%, but I think you can move the general population's thinking over time, little by little, towards a more pro-liberty direction by doing these kinds of activism.
Well, and I think that it's pointed out with every time we get a little bit closer towards liberty, people's lives will be getting better. I mean, the more and more government you have, well, the worse life really is. I mean, governments don't provide things for people. I mean, well, besides that, at the point of a gun. But as you reduce the size of government, people accumulate more wealth for themselves. They're able to do more things with their money, give it to charity, have more free time on their own. I mean,
well, and you also have fear of the unintended consequences that government programs usually bring about. I mean, for instance, if we did away with the war on drugs, we probably wouldn't have a lot of the violence for the government to deal with. So in some ways, their own system feeds upon itself. The bad drug laws do lead to a lot of other crime. That fly is annoying me. But as I was saying, bad policies like the war on drugs that interfere with people's liberty usually lead the government to try to justify new programs to further interfere with people's liberty and take more money out of their pockets. So if we can reverse that course, we'll be on track to actually arrive at liberty in our lifetimes.
All right, we are going to have to take a break, but first I wanted to get one more interview in here and talk to someone else who has recently decided, well, the Free State, moving for freedom is something for me. Could you introduce yourself so everyone can know who you are and where you're from?
My name is Kurt Hildebrandt, and I'm from suburban Detroit, Sterling Heights, Michigan. And basically, this is my second PorcFest. It didn't take me but a day and a half to realize, you know, during my first one that this is where I want to be. You know, I came up to make sure that I wasn't getting involved with people who wanted to do it with violence, who wanted to push their beliefs on people. And, because they talked a great game, and they, in the forums and on the radio shows. And I just wanted to make sure that that was indeed the case. And like I said, it wasn't but a day and a half before I realized this is the place to be.
And currently you're still in Michigan, as I understand it, still trying to get things in order, and maybe try to convince your wife to move there.
That's the primary one.
And for a lot of people, that is the hang-up, is having a significant other. They're not always as on board as somebody else who wants to move. So, but you're working on it. And,
absolutely.
And I know you are helping out by donating to pro-liberty causes here in New Hampshire as much as you can.
And like I said, I've said this a couple of times. You hear about the Jeffersons and the Adamses, you hear about the Franklins, but you don't hear about the people who melted down their family service, silver service that they've been, generations to make that happen. And although I'm not quite doing that, at least I can donate that which I can.
All right. Well, we really appreciate it here in New Hampshire, and can't wait until you do finally get to make the move and come up here.
I can't wait till I can see you guys more than once a year.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we do have a whole lot more show coming back at you. We're going to be doing more interviews, talking to more people, but first we've got to take a quick little break, finalize the DVD so we can continue recording here. We are live at PorcFest 2009, and we'll be right back.
This edition of whatever it is you're watching is brought to you by
Ridley Report, something, Ridley Report.
This is Glenn Jacobs, and you're watching Free Minds TV.
And welcome back to Free Minds TV, where we are broadcasting live from PorcFest 2009 at Lancaster, New Hampshire. We are been talking to all sorts of different folks who are either from New Hampshire, made the move to New Hampshire, or are planning on making the move to New Hampshire to fight for more freedom and less government. And one of the people that I think probably has gotten a whole bunch of these people to move here through the voice of talk radio is Ian Freeman from Free Talk Live. Ian.
Always good to be on the show, guys.
Always a pleasure to have you here. I mean, you have probably been one of the most instrumental people of getting putting the message out there and getting people involved, not only in the Free State Project, but just generally in the freedom movement in general.
Well, it's a selfish endeavor. I want to be free, and I can't do it by myself, so we need to get as many people into the same area as possible. And I mean, this is my third PorcFest, I think. Everyone just keeps getting better, and there's so many exciting, interesting people around here doing amazing things. It's just, I mean, I know you guys had Patrick on earlier talking about the surge of movers that we've had to Keene. It just keeps getting better, and if it weren't for all these great people moving here, we wouldn't have any of this. I mean, you guys wouldn't have a crew. We wouldn't have this wonderful movement that just continues to build and get more popular. And as that goes on, the regular folks out there become more acquainted with our message. As more people enter an area, they hit it on TV with Free Minds TV. They get it on the radio. They get the New Hampshire Free Press. I don't even know if I've answered your question.
But I forget what it was, but there's just so much going on.
There is.
It was actually Free Talk Live that I stumbled across when I first got my iPod, and it's like, this looks interesting, I'll listen to it, and I was really angry at it for about a week and a half until something clicked and I got it, and you guys were talking about PorcFest, so I came here. I actually made it a whole year before you did, Ian. That's the one thing I have over you. But other than that, I mean, been instrumental in making so much happen. I mean, you've opened up the Free Talk Live studios and allowed Free Minds Radio, the supplemental radio program we do, to happen, as well as all sorts of other activism.
Sunday afternoons from 3 to 5.
Yeah, freekeene.com, it's growing to be one of the largest liberty blogs, especially at least one of the only ones in Keene, New Hampshire.
Yeah, that I know of.
And I mean, it's just getting more and more people active, and it's almost having this snowball effect.
That was, what I'd hoped for. I mean, I'd moved to Keene originally because Russell and Kat Canning were there doing the Keene Free Press at that time. And that was really the only media of which to speak as far as liberty is concerned in Keene. And And that's what drove me there. I said, well, there's already a newspaper. Let's bring a radio show in and let's see if we can, kind of get a real core of Liberty media happening. And now it's really blowing up with you guys doing the TV and the radio thing. And it sounds to me like there might be some of your crew breaking out to do their own television show at some point.
Which is excellent. I mean, it started off when we started doing Free Minds TV, we had to scramble to get crew members.
Yep.
Now there's a lot of times there's not enough jobs for the crew, so it only makes sense that they split off and make more media.
Yep, and that's what tends to happen. I mean, activists will come in and they'll see a need for something new, and they'll just start it. And I think that's great because, I mean, I'm not a leader in any of this. I'm just somebody who's on the radio saying, "Hey, come here. This is where it's happening." I mean, this is the action. It's here in New Hampshire. It's not anywhere else. So I highly recommend that you check this out. Take a serious look at freestateproject.org, and then better than that, come up here to the Porcupine Freedom Festival next year. Come up to the Liberty Forum and meet some of these awesome people. I mean, you've only had a sample of them here at this table.
Yeah, we've had like 10, but there's hundreds that are here.
Hundreds. Families, single people. It's an amazing group of folks.
Yeah, and as you point out on the radio show, Ian, you can do liberty activism anywhere you want, but you're really not going to get the same return on your investment as you do here in New Hampshire because you just don't have the support network that you do here.
Well, Patrick, I heard you interviewing Patrick, also from Keene, and he was talking about the Liberty Bunker, which is just one of the handful of houses in Keene that hold multiple activists. And I was just thinking, they've got 13 people in one house. I mean, I would have been amazed if I could get 13 people out to one Libertarian Party meeting down in Sarasota, Florida, which is, a fairly large-sized market. 300,000 people live in Sarasota County alone. We live in a county, Cheshire County, with maybe tops 100,000 people, and we have several times the amount of activists that I had back down in Florida. And I pumped a lot of money into building up the Libertarian Party down there. Up here, I could care less about. I'm over the Libertarian Party. I don't even call myself a Libertarian.
Well, because of some of the things that went on there.
We're all small government, and we're over the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, so. And it's not really necessary here in New Hampshire. I mean, there are pro-liberty candidates who have run, Free State Project movers who have run and won as state representatives, and they're now in the New Hampshire State House. And they didn't run as Libertarian Party members. They ran as Republicans and in some cases Democrats. So it's really not necessary to have a third party here in New Hampshire when you can get libertarians elected through those avenues.
I actually had a tough time. I was being interviewed by the guys from the Motorhome Diaries yesterday in Marv. They're motorhomediaries.com, and they had asked me what was going on in Keene, and it took me several minutes to just kind of run through all of the different things. And I'm sure I left something out. I'm sure there was something else that I didn't mention. There's social events and media being produced, and civil disobedience, and coming up here this fall are going to be municipal elections, and even the political thing is going to be going on in Keene. And so there's just so much happening. You really have to be choosy about what it is that you want to do.
Well, that's a great problem to have. I mean, it's something you probably won't get anywhere else in the world. Well, Ian, you have to go do the radio show. You guys with Free Talk Live are up here all of the rest of PorcFest, right? Tonight, Friday night, and Saturday night.
That's correct. We'll be broadcasting live at freetalklive.com, and I don't know if you guys are going to jet out of here anytime soon, but you're certainly welcome to come on by and stop in and say hello.
All right. Well, Ian, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that kind of wraps up what we're doing here at PorcFest 2009, but the events certainly aren't over. They're actually just getting kicked off.
Tonight's for most people, this is the start of when the night starts getting kicked off, and a lot of the socializing takes place because a lot of people do go out during the day to explore the state or to different events around the state. So for a lot of people, their day is really just beginning here at Rogers Campground. But you're getting married this weekend. We have a long drive back through Vermont to get back to Keene, so we're going to start breaking down, and well, we'll see people here at the
I mean, it's one thing to watch it on TV, but it's a completely different experience to actually be here. So that's one thing. If you couldn't make it this year, I'd think about, hey, maybe saving up and coming out next year, because it is a great time. And hopefully I'll have this all, we are live on the internet right now, but have it all up and ready to go before PorcFest is over so people can check it out and, hey, maybe even make the move and come on down here. Well, thanks so much. Let's see, the plugs that we should probably send people to. freemindsmedia.com is our website where you can get the TV archives, the radio show, as well as all the blogs that are put up there. And freestateproject.org is where you should go to find out more about the Free State Project. Well, it's been Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Until next year or next week when you watch our show, hopefully. Have a good night or day. Ah.